Well, hi Phil, here we are at Lytham Hall again. What a fantastic time, what a fantastic day. Easter Sunday weekend, and don't forget this weekend we've got the Easter bunny hunt on Sunday. Do have a look at the website, do look at the Facebook pages, all the details are there. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. We'll be looking at one or two of the bits on the way round as well. There's another thing as well. Do apologise for the delay. We have had some staff illnesses, as you've probably heard. And the nice thing is we're going to announce the winner of the photographic competition for the snowdrops. So all that is going to be here very, very soon. And there'll be a presentation in due course as well. That, of course, will go in the calendar for next year, 2023. Fabulous, fabulous snowdrops. We'll be looking at some bluebells later as well. You know, one of the things people ask me a lot is, we've been round Lytham Hall, we want to know how old it is. And it's really an interesting question because, of course, how many answers would you like? That's the problem with questions. And and this is a trendy word, I want you all to remember this, the word of the week, if not the word of the year. It's palimpsest. What on earth does that mean? Well, strictly speaking, it's rather like when they used to have the old parchment paper. When you'd finished using it, because it was so valuable, you got a sharp knife and scraped all the writing off and used it again. Sort of recycling, but it left tiny traces of what had gone before. And archaeologists sometimes use that term, and it's a little bit of a trendy word, palimpsest, for the layers, if you like, of what has been left behind. So going back to the question, how old is it? Is it Georgian? Is it Victorian? It's all of those things. And there's fragments, ghosts, if you like, of everything that went before. Whether it be Victorian, or here with the parterre, of course, prior to the parterre there was a bit of Guardian, which was a tarmac car park. Part of history. We're thinking about the future as well. Of course, before the car park, there was the rose garden, there was the Italianate parterre of the Victorians, there would be Georgian things, and even before the Georgian Hall, there was arms or grass arms that were from the pre-Georgian era, going right back into the Elizabethan times. So this palimpsest sort of says there are bits and pieces, and the point is we need to, first of all, respect them. Secondly, not feel that we only need to go for one era. And thirdly, from my point of view, educate people and try and interpret over time. Of course, archaeology, as you all know, is an extraordinarily long-winded and extremely expensive thing. So we need to be careful we protect, and when there is time, money and the initiatives, we can follow those up. For instance, with the ice house, we've very, very professionally covered that up for future use. So that's basically a little bit about why we don't say this is a Georgian house, a Georgian garden. This is why this is not just a Victorian idea. We'll show you as we go around bits from different eras. A palimpsest. We came here last time, and in the last video, if you remember, we only had the supports here for these beautiful hornbeams. This is what it's all about. Pleached hornbeam avenue, going all the way back to the hall, and of course there'll be a wonderful vista from the hall looking all this way. Pleached basically is a form of training where you actually have an elevated hedge. And the training, as you can see here, is the sort of thing you do with fruit trees on a wall. And these are absolutely fabulous, these trees. There's 18 in total. The fastenings on here, the tree ties, are temporary because we've had some windy weather. There will be a far more attractive fastening system. Just to let you know, what else will there be here? Well, there'll be an herbaceous border. We mentioned it briefly. But there'll be a castellated rectangular bed here, And the whole of this grass area all the way down there will also be herbaceous. So the two work together with the pleach trees, and they reflect the coins, the cornerstones of the hall, as we mentioned before. So we promised you we'd come back as soon as there was some development, and this is the development, and they're just beginning to come into leaf. Imagine these in a few years to come. Remember, with trees, you have to think ahead. Don't be impatient, nature isn't. Get this foundation in first, so woody plants first. That's what we do. And when it comes to things like designing, remember, somebody has to maintain these forever. So, as I used to say to students, with a small project, yes, you can design in a day, you can build in a week, but you still need to maintain forever, and that's what quality reflects. Well, hi, and guess what we're looking at here? We've talked about them before. The national collections of both the giant redwoods and the coastal redwoods. Coastal redwood, you remember, was sequoia, and this one, sequoia dendron, are the giant redwoods. Now at Lytham Hall we're going to have lots of different cultivars, if you like, the variations, because the national collection is about showing people. They will come to Lytham Hall to see all the different kinds in the UK. And this particular one is one of the ones that grows full size, but you'll see compared to some of the others in later videos, it's a slightly more open form, it's fast growing, and its cultivar is called lighting green. Not lightening green, not lightning green, lighting green. It will have the proper label on soon. Present moment about 1.25 metres, 4 feet just over, something like that. Planted recently. This is one of our very kindly sponsored trees, as many of them are, and we do actually have a bit of a waiting list at the moment. It's really becoming very popular, and we've a lot more trees coming. So here we are, a Wellingtonia if you like, or giant redwood, sequoia, and it's not called sequoia, it's called sequoia dendron, sorry. Sequoia dendron giganteum, and this one is lighting green. Absolutely amazing thing. It will in time grow over 1 metre a year, and that will be quite something to see. And of course the important thing is, you'll perhaps say, well, there appear to be a few weeds around here. We will be clearing out to a diameter between 30 and 40 feet wherever we plant a sequoia dendron giganteum. Thank you very much. Superb to see them in. Guess where we are? Well, we're on top of the Prospect Mount. Why the Prospect? Well, you come up here and you look at the prospect, the whole view. And there's two possibilities here. One is the view that you would show your visitors. Everything you can see is mine, all the way around in that panorama. And behind me, of course, there's the famous Curtains Pond, which is full of fish, very possibly used by people in the past for food. And people do say that some of the excavations may have been used to repair and extend the height of this Prospect Mount. Of course, the other thing that you would bring your visitors up to see is the beautiful view of your house, your garden, the historic parkland, and looking now, to be quite honest, it's coming on rather well. And all we need is Chris Blackburn and his famous striped lawn, and it will look splendid. So although I'm just sitting here enjoying the sunshine, I never cease to be amazed when I come up to this mount, look across and think, you know what, we've done quite a lot here since we first started, because my first job on here was sawing some rhododendrons down. We took some trees down and we rebuilt the mount. We put the new steps in using our own larch. We built all these paths with volunteers, blood, sweat and tears, an enormous amount of volunteer time, superb design by our amazing designers, people like Edward Thorpe, Greg Anderton, all those sorts of people who have put their heart and souls into it. But there's a lot more to come. And remember, this is about looking back to the past, respecting the past, thinking of where we are today, and very importantly, where we'll be tomorrow. I've said to you before, I think of lifetimes as 300 years. In other words, I'm a tree. I won't last quite that long, but nevertheless, I think about this place like that, and it makes it happen. I can plan for the future, we can plan for the future. It's looking spectacular. Okay, Phil, well, you know, there's so much going on. I'm going to be in trouble because I'm going to miss something out, but I can't walk past here without telling you about these fabulous fruit trees. Apples, pears, we've got plums further down, damsons, apricots, and I'll show you something really unusual down at the bottom as well. But let's just have a look along here. All sorts of different varieties, northern varieties, mainly Lancashire apples and pears as well, in a serpentine way, so reflecting the way the Victorians would have been involved with this. And they're historic varieties. Wonderful, absolutely fantastic. And as I say, not planted formally. On the other side of this wall, of course, as you know, we've got the cordon apple trees. But it's wonderful. I've waited and waited so many years to see this orchard be planted. Again, other people will enjoy these in decades to come, but we're enjoying them now like we couldn't possibly imagine. And of course, it's perhaps just worth thinking about this for a while. We're walking along this fabulous wall, the Paradise Wall, by the way, part of the Paradise Garden. This side would have been the servants. This is not the house side, this is the servants, so out of sight of the main hall. Here's the privy, for instance. I'll tell you about that on another day. Fascinating story with that. Let's just walk down a little bit further. More fruit trees. We start coming into all sorts of different types. Pears here. Wonderful. Pears at Lytham Hall. We haven't got a pear tree, but we have now. And here we go again. Absolutely amazing. Apricot. And I want to just show you something. I want to show you this gable end here on this little cottage. We're just going to have a look at this because it's important. Apricots are difficult to grow. Apricots need quite a bit of heat. It's not so much the heat during the summer they need to be frost free. So we put them on a south facing brick wall, spot on. And that is going to have another apricot on it. So again, we'll continue down towards the kitchen garden. What a wonderful, wonderful place the kitchen garden is. And as we do, I did promise you we'll have a look at a rather unusual fruit. Let's go right back in history to this, the medlar. Would you believe that these fruits are best eaten after a frost when they start to rot? Can you imagine people wanting to eat things that are rotten? But they become sweeter. You've probably heard of the noble rot with making wine with grapes. You let them shrivel and they start to get this botrytis fungus. That makes them sweet. It extracts the sweetness. So medlar, Nottingham, fabulous. We're trying to make this complete. We're looking at all the different eras as we go. So as we move now from the top fruit, the orchard, lovely historic plants, we'll go into the kitchen garden. There's so much going on. It's early in the season, but there's still a lot going on. Beautiful, beautiful place. One of my favourite places at Lytham Hall. It's just always so neat and tidy. So much work. The volunteers in the kitchen garden put so much into this. There's a nice surprise coming a little bit later in the year, but we'll talk about that when it happens, just to keep you on your toes. And let's just have a look through here. And I just want to show you something about the tree nursery as well whilst we're here. So let's just, as we do, wandered down here, immaculately looked after. Keep the birds out. Got to keep the birdies off your sprouting broccoli. There's nothing worse than a wood pigeon on your sprouting broccoli. All ready for the climbing French beans. And let's go and have a little look at something that's going to be very nice in the future. Well now, what have we got round the corner here? Well, we're going past one of the Sequoia sempervirens varieties. We're going past yet another St Anne's bred historic apple. And what's this? Well, this is our little tree nursery. We've had to do this in a bit of a hurry because the way the season has come on. These trees were donated to us very, very late in the year, and so we planted as many as we could in the woods. But the beauty is the volunteers have put these in quickly so that they can continue growing in situ. And people ask us, don't you plant British natives? Well, of course we do. We plant a whole range of stuff. And let's just go through what we've actually got here. So for instance, here we've got hazel. Next to them there, we've got the most amazing tree, the tree of Lancashire, the alder. A few more to plant next week, a little bit of work, they're coming into leaf, the silver birch, hornbeam, and here again, more of the hazel. Talking of hornbeam, these are quite tall. These are going to grow really, really well this year. You might say, gosh, they're planted very close together. They are, they're about 5 to 7 centimetres apart, 2 to 3 inches. That's not a problem. They don't need leaving there for very long. They'll grow this summer and we'll have fabulous trees this autumn and we'll plant over the winter out in the parkland. Well, Phil, you're going to ask, why on earth am I looking at a cherry that's past it? Well, actually, I think it's looking at me and I won't say any more about that. Look at this. Now, you might have heard about Japanese festivals celebrating life, celebrating the circle of life, celebrating the fact that nothing is forever, but the beauty of the cherry blossom festivals. Absolutely fantastic. And an old man with children in the background and people at Lytham Hall here enjoying things. This was an early cherry, absolutely superb, and it really, really annoys me when people say, oh, I hate them, they spoil the floor and I have to sweep them up. Well, what a load of lazy people, they don't deserve nature. This is nature in the raw, and of course humans, for time immemorial, have virtually worshipped such things as these cherries. I'll show you some that are just at their best in a moment. Now, many a time, Phil, particularly on the Facebook page when I'm putting photographs on, I remind people, don't run about, don't be too quick, stop, look and have a close look. So here's probably one of the most beautiful flowers in the world, and yet would you have seen it? Possibly not, but you have now. And this is a Norway maple flower. Look at these fabulous colours, look at those flowers. And actually they're very, very good for bees. They're full of nectar. The reason they're purple is this is the purple-leaved variety, so if it was the ordinary Norway maple, they would be green, these buds, these scales here. Absolutely fantastic. So it's not all about cherries, it's about using your observation skills. Get into nature, get close up, put a smile on your face. Well, the Queen loves blossom. This is what she's talking about. Cherry blossom. And this reminds me, it takes me back to my childhood, because typical cherry blossom, this was the tree you always saw. In fact, you'd see cherry blossom, you'd see laburnum, and you would always have those at the same sort of time. The yellow of the laburnum, the pink of Prunus canzan, it's called. Quite a triangular or inverted triangle, double flowers, fabulous blossom. And as I mentioned before, believe it or not, there are people that get angry when it starts to shed and it causes what they refer to as litter on the floor. They don't deserve it. Fabulous, fabulous flowers. I always think spring has arrived when Kanzan is in flower. And of course here, thinking about Lytham Hall, not only have you got the amazing cherries just coming into leaf as well, but you've got all of Leafy Lytham's plants on sale here. We've got the cafe over there, we've got busy people enjoying the weekend and hopefully coming on Sunday as well. And over there, Lytham Hall Antiques. And here's another of the Lytham Hall Antiques. So Prunus Kanzan, absolutely fantastic. Just the thing to make you smile. And we're going to have a look at some Japanese plants in a moment. Well, we've talked about all sorts of fabulous spring flowering trees, and here's one of my favourites, the magnolia. This is one of the larger types, but it looks a bit like Magnolia stellata. Its Latin name is Magnolia Heaven Scent, and the scent is spelt like a scent that you smell, and it smells gorgeous. And the beauty of this one really is that it's a medium tree. It's not a small tiny one, but it's not one of those gigantic ones that gets too rampant and then you have to prune it and it's a nuisance. But also around here we've just got so many other things. Behind me is the amazing common cherry, but look at that flower, single, simple and beautiful. And then as I look across I can see apples, but are they apples? Well, actually they're crab apples, and we'll have a look at those as well in a moment. Underneath my feet, bluebells coming along. The bluebells are going to look fabulous for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks at least, I think. And we're getting a flush of the early ones, but the main ones are still to come. They're a couple of weeks away at least. And in amongst them, what could be more beautiful than cowslips? All sown. We've been sowing these for years from the original planting that we had, and now nature is sowing them all by herself. It's not us, it's nature. Well, just look at this. It wasn't very long ago we looked at this. There are no flowers on this beautiful weeping cherry. We've just looked at Prunus Kanzan. Here we have Cheil's weeping. What a fabulous, fabulous frame. How appropriate for a Japanese garden. And look at those reflections, Phil. Just, it makes my heart sing, because Lytham Hall isn't just about being a nice place to come for a little walk. It's a lovely place to discover, almost to worship actually, because you find more and more and more of value. And that's what it's about. We have value. We have a team here who value what they are actually custodians of. And the more we find, the more we respect. And the more we respect, the more we're inspired and motivated to help, not just to recreate, but to preserve and look after what should be here, what was here, and what will be here. And funnily enough, just at the head of the lake up there at the lily pond, we've got a nice little baby heron. Whether we'll be able to show you him, I'm not sure, but he's quite tame by comparison to some of the others, and the parents aren't at all worried about humans as they were a few years ago. Here we are. We looked at a Sequoiadendron giganteum earlier on, and I mentioned about cultivars, in other words, the variants that grow throughout the world. Of course, we think of them as these gigantic trees from California, and they are critically endangered, and we will have the collection here at Lytham Hall, but we will also have the variants. This is an incredible one. This is Sequoiadendron giganteum pendulum. We saw it before, but of course then it was in a pot with nowhere to go, no home. What a perfect place in a garden with Japanese ancestry. Even though it's from North America, it just fits. Look at the way that we've helped to straighten it out and support it slightly, because it needs some support. using a hazel branch as a crotch there to support this. Just what the Japanese do. And it's just as important to have this in the picture and this as part of the art as it is to have the tree itself. So don't get worried about the supports, because if you think about it, life isn't just about the person, it's about the support, and it's the same with nature. Looks after itself, or we help and we become, not next to nature, we become part of nature, because that's what we are. So fabulous, fabulous tree. This is going to be a star, and it'll frame this lily pond rather nicely. This is about 40 years old. Okay, well, here we are, the lily pond, and talk about Japanese influence, absolutely amazing. And in my left ear I can hear the baby heron demanding food from its parents. Look at these rocks, just look at these rocks. Been here since late Victorian times, but what a beautiful plant we've got here, Solomon's seal. Now Solomon's seal is very often a sign. Remember we talked about palimpest earlier on. We've actually got basically a plant here that suggests this is an old garden. We know it's an old garden, but here's a little bit of extra evidence. So Solomon's seal, beautiful thing, polygonatum. These white flowers that you can just see in bud at the moment will soon look rather like lily of the valley, or an individual flower that you'd have on a hyacinth flower. Absolutely superb. And if you look over here, this is the feminine artwork of a Zen rock garden, and the absolute splendour there of the twisted hazel, Corylus avellana contorta, the contorted hazel. Absolutely spectacular, and it's the red form as well. In the background, I'm sure you can see in the background, more reflections, moss. I'm hoping the moss is going to slowly but surely grow and grow in the way that Japanese moss gardens do. But as I've said before, that could take about 300 years, so somebody else will see that. But I'm just so excited that we've got something here and the evidence is coming. And I want to show you one last thing really in a few minutes, which is all about the Japanese history of this garden. Right, now then, a little bit of something, a bit of archaeology here. Remember I talked about respecting archaeology, making sure we don't damage anything, spoil the story from the past into the present, and be very careful that we don't ruin someone else's future. But just look at this. When I first started looking at the Japanese influence here and the John Talbot story and lots of other people's evidence about the Japanese influence, I said to myself, where on earth is the Japanese bridge? Well, we've heard from various people in the past about it since there actually was one. And lo and behold, here's the evidence. I actually drew this in a design. I thought if ever I designed a bridge, it would have to go here. In other words, it's a rule of Japanese garden design that it would go here, because this is the sacred river flowing past us. We're on the bank, basically, of the Blue Dragon. But here, look, are the foundations of the Japanese bridge. It would probably have been a 77 log bridge with logs across it. You see how these are girders and they're at a very low angle and they would arch across, and lo and behold a bit of the remnants on the far side. 57 inches wide, and at the far side there I found it buried in a tree. The tree's grown round it. Obviously it's collapsed into the water, and 57 inches from that end across, it's there. So that gives you the idea, the span, the trajectory, the actual radius of the arc. Won't it be a wonderful, wonderful thought that maybe one day we'll have this? Because this wasn't built to get to the island. This was built for the pure art of it. If you look at Monet's garden, guess what you've got? lilies, a Japanese water feature, a Japanese garden, and most importantly, Japanese bridge. Very, very symbolic. I'm over the moon. Fantastic. Well, Phil, we're going to finish the way we started, really. We talked about the Friends of Lytham Hall and the Easter Bunny Hunt this Sunday. I did say have a look at the website, and I also said have a look at Facebook. Better than Facebook, guess what? We've got Meg and Ian. And Meg's going to tell you a little about what we're doing. And don't take any notice of head veggie, by the way. I'm a carnivore. Over to you.
Yeah, I'm the Queen Bunny, and we're going to have a wonderful time, full of fun on Sunday. It's from 11 o'clock in the morning and the last entry is 3:30. You can trail through the woods. We've got 13 lovely scenes. You've got to collect eggs from each scheme and take them to the other bunny, the live bunny, and she will give you a chocolate egg. Right, we've got cake decorating, we've got Easter crafts, we've got a children's tombola, we've got a bouncy castle, so we're in for lots of fun. Do come and join us.
Fantastic, absolutely amazing. Well, make sure you're here. There's limited space. If you're not here first, you might not be the last. Bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Got to hop it.